Hello, my name is Dean Heald. I have the honor of presenting this 10-part series of mini webinars focused on helping parents and caregivers better understand and more effectively respond to some of the challenging behaviors that may or may not be happening in your home. Whether you are struggling with how to respond to behaviors or simply looking for a refresher, I hope that there's a little bit of something in these webinars for everybody. Today, we're going to look at part 2 of 10, titled How Stress and Worry Manifest into Behaviors. All right, so stress and worry. So oftentimes we talk about them as interchangeable things, but they are a little bit different. So stress is something, is a psychological response. It's something that happens in the brain, although it certainly can impact the whole body. But it's something initially that happens in the brain, and that's connected to an external event. Okay, so it can be it's a psychological response initially, and then it turns into that physiological response, and it will be some sort of external circumstance. Like, we can be stressed about, a job interview. We can be stressed about a big test at school. We can be stressed about our first day of school, or anything like that. Or, it can be, we can be stressed out about, as kids, they might be worried about all the unknowns with COVID-19 and the big changes in their world. Worry is a little bit different. Okay, when we start over focusing, when we start ruminating or obsessing over negative thoughts, over negative outcomes, over possibilities, okay, about the what ifs, what could happen, what might happen, that's worry. Okay, that's that incessant over focusing, what if, and without any real resolution or solution. And same thing, it is something that starts as a psychological event, but manifests itself physiologically. So we know that, stress and worry both can impact our sleep patterns. It can impact our eating habits. It can impact the way we feel. Our little ones, they'll often say, my tummy hurts. When I worked many years ago, I worked with some grade kindergarten, grade 1, and I often heard kids say, my tummy's hurting. And as somebody who's always been really interested in behavior, I saw a trend. I thought, why is their stomach always hurting? And so I asked them, and it's going to sound like a bit of a funny question, but it's really important to, because it showed what was really going on. So I started asking them, does it feel like you have to poop? Does it feel like you have to puke? Or does it feel like there's butterflies or tickles in your tummy? And and what I found was, oftentimes they were saying, it feels like there's butterflies or tickles in my tummy. And the reason why asking that kind of question is so important is because our response is going to be motivated by the answer to the question, right? So we don't want to be giving role aids to a kid who's simply just worried that mom is a little bit late for picking them up from school, or worried that mom will be a little bit late for picking them up from school. So we want to know that, if somebody's just worried about something, we want to be able to comfort them verbally, or comfort them with some one-to-one time, or encourage them to engage in their personalized self-regulatory activities. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as this webinar continues. So the psychological and emotional signs of stress. So, I said, it often starts, in the brain, or it does start in the brain. It's something that, that psychological response is. How do we support them? Initially, that depressed mood, we reassure them. I'm here for you. You're strong. We've got through this. You will be okay. Don't minimize. Oh, don't worry about that. What could happen? Okay. Telling somebody not to worry, as I've mentioned before, telling somebody not to worry does not positively impact, somebody's worries. Okay, normalize. Let them know that yeah, I worry sometimes too, or I get stressed out sometimes as well. So let them know that they're not the only one. Not in a minimizing sort of way, but certainly letting them know that. I remember as a kid, my worries and my stress, it felt like my own, and I felt like I was the only person really going through some of the things that I was stressed and worried about. And it was only when it's an adult, somebody who took the time to say, yeah, adults worry too, they just worry about different things, that I kind of started understanding, hey, it's one of those things that everybody has to go through in life. Really, really, really important. It's more than just telling kids how to respond to stress and worry. It's modeling that, showing them, and sometimes just verbalizing it. Hey, you know what? I don't know why, but I'm feeling a little bit off today, and I know when I'm feeling like this, the best thing for me is to just sit quietly, read a book on the deck, and take some time for myself. You know, Verbalizing that, communicating your process, letting them know that you're taking steps to make to self-regulate, to cope with some of that stress and worry, will in turn teach them, or remind them, or show them that they can do the exact same, the same thing as well. So you know we're not born with the ability or the knowledge to independently cope with stress and worry, to independently cope effectively with stress and worry. And that's why we'll see a lot of our kids, when they are stressed out, when they are worried, lashing out, or having behaviors that they normally wouldn't display. Okay? And a lot of times the reason why that's the case is because they don't know a different way. So we need to show them, a replacement behavior for lashing out at your brother and sister is taking some quiet time, verbalizing it, saying, hey, you know what, I'm not okay right now. I'm feeling a little bit icky, or I'm feeling tickles in my tummy, I'm feeling stressed out, I'm feeling agitated. This is what I need to do for myself. And it's different for everybody, right? It's not enough just to say, take 5 deep breaths, right? If it was as easy as that, we just tell everybody to do it, right? I've started seeing kids say, stop telling me to breathe. I am breathing, right? It's more than that. So we have to, we have to discover how each one of our kids is independently coping with with stress and worry. And if it gets too overwhelming, if they go to that dark place, if they go, if it seems like it's ongoing, like they've been like this for months, seek help if necessary. Don't it's okay to reach out and say, I'm concerned for my child. It seems like they've been feeling like this for a long time, and I don't have the answers. Sometimes a different person hearing, and sometimes they might have a different approach, or sometimes it might even be necessary to have them speaking with somebody else, and that's okay. Um, so if it gets to that point, seek help. And at the end of these slides, there is going to be the phone number for the wonderful, wonderful folks at Kw'umut and the wellness team there. Other psychological and emotional signs of stress, change in sleep patterns. Okay, so we know that the kids need to be able to sleep effectively in order to deal with the stressors that are part of everyday life for everybody. Okay, we see the little graphic there. It says insufficient sleep can lead to almost 30% increase in anxiety. And anxiety is one of those things. It can happen just when we're feeling off. And I know for myself, I'll have anxiety sometimes, and I'll sit down and I'll tell my wife, I'm just feeling anxious, and she'll say, well, what are you feeling anxious about? And oftentimes my answer is nothing. My mind is looking for something to worry about, and but I can sometimes pinpoint it to, I didn't sleep well last night, or I've got I had some caffeine, or that kind of thing. So we know that our children need sleep. to deal with that stress, to just be effective in the day, to be as effective as they normally would, to want to engage with the outside world, to maximize the sleep, to get to a point where that we're giving them the best chance at a good night's sleep. Limit some of that screen time prior to bed. We know that blue light that comes from the screens impacts people's ability to have a restful sleep, to get to sleep and stay asleep. Okay, have a sleep routine. Leading up, particularly for our younger ones, leading up to bedtime. We we do the self care, the brush our teeth, wash our face. We get in our nice pajamas. We read a book. We spend a little bit of time together talking. We turn off the light at this time. Get into that routine. That'll help a lot with our bodies. Our bodies remember. Like I know for myself, I get tired at a certain time. If if our kids are going to bed at the same time every night, or whenever possible. I know that there's sometimes when things might change a little bit, but as often as possible, if we're putting our kids to bed at the same time, their bodies are going to remember that, and they're going to start getting tired at that time. And finally, keep those distractors out of the room if we can. The TVs, the cell phones, the video games. Particularly for our teenagers, when the video games become I hate to use the word addiction, but oftentimes it becomes an addiction for some of our teenagers. To have it right in the room there, it's going to be, it's going to make it that much tougher to sleep. It's going to be a place where the brain goes. One more game. We want the bedrooms, our kids' bedrooms, as much as possible to be restful, safe environments. So if we have children who are really struggling with the sleep, try and keep some of those distractors out. Some other signs of emotional, the kids are going through an emotional tough time, or they're stressed, or over focused on the worries. They can be easily triggered, easily angered. They can lash out, and once again, we're looking, we're focused specifically on those kids where that's not really normal. Like this is different for her. She's not normally that easily angered, right? So there's lots of things we can do. A few of them, model that anger management. Okay, just show them, what, I'm a little bit annoyed right now with something that, with a phone call that I just took from work. I need a few minutes, because the last thing in the world I want to do is take it out on any of you guys. That's a great modeling, owning it, normalizing it. Everybody gets angry sometimes, and that's okay. It's what we do with that anger. So as adults, like I say, kids aren't born with the ability to independently self-regulate in those times. As adults, we have to teach them that. And the greatest way of teaching them is modeling it for them, showing them how we deal with those moments when they come. If the kids are easily angered and they're lashing out at you, be the bigger person. Walk away. Don't get sucked into that power struggle. Don't get sucked into that argument. Okay, let it go. Right, let it go, and we can, and don't walk away, in a rude way. Don't walk away, while they're talking or anything like that. It shouldn't feel like a rejection to the kids. It should just feel like, this conversation isn't going anywhere, so I'm going to withdraw. And we can say, hey, you know what? I feel like you're really upset right now. I don't know that this conversation is helping either one of us. Why don't we revisit this later? Okay? Something as simple as that. Just allow for some of that calm down time. Manage those paraverbals and the nonverbals, and what I mean by that, it's not just what we say, but it's how we say it. If we're pointing an angry finger and talking with them and getting in their space and looking big and overwhelming, if we're talking fast, if we're talking loud, if we're interrupting, all of those things are likely to agitate. All of those things are likely to fan the flames, if you will, of the anger. right? So we want to present, so if they're up here, we want to go a little bit below them. We want our voice, I like when I'm dealing with somebody who's angry, I like to bring my voice down. I can see that you're angry. So we're modeling some of that quieter language. We're modeling some of that slower verbiage. Our paraverbals have slowed down. I'm going to manage I'm a big guy. And so I'm going to manage just my body language. I'm going to make sure that there's space between me and the individual. And I'm going to, I might even sit down. So I'm going to model some of that non-threatening, nonverbal behavior that is so, so important. So, so to make sure that I'm not making the situation worse. And the last one, don't engage in, if we can reassure, but sometimes our kids will want to argue just for the sake of arguing. Okay. Try not to engage in those moments. Another psychological and emotional sign of stress, just that loss of motivation, not wanting to do anything, not wanting to get up in the morning, not wanting to really accomplish anything in the day. We're so overcome with our worry and our stress that engagement is really, really tough. So for our kids, we just need to create a routine, have little things that they should accomplish each and every day. You need to get up at this time. You need to have the dog walked by this time. You need to have your breakfast eaten by this time. You need to have your teeth brushed by this time. This is family time. This is what time the TV goes off at night, and this is what bedtime is. So creating an obvious routine, particularly for our younger kids, and have those little things in there that they need to accomplish in the day. Their chores, their little things. I mean, we're not working them all day or anything, but we got little things where each day they're accomplishing, and they can look back at the day and say, well, I got these things done. Identify motivators. So, if they've lost motivation, what are some motivators that we can add in there? Whether it's, it's one-to-one time, whether it's, an activity that they really like, go swim in the ocean, go fishing, go for a hike, any of those things, some video game time, sometimes, I've seen parents who limit their kids' video game time to X amount of time each day. And then they can add some bonus time should the kids accomplish certain things in a day. Get everything done, and then you can have some bonus time. And that way it becomes a reward rather than having to take it. No, you didn't get your stuff done today, you don't get your video game time. So that negative way of approaching it, that tends not to be effective, and it tends to create issues, whereas do it the opposite way and it can become a reward. A lot of times with our kids, when they've lost motivation, when they're just stuck in their stress and their worry, they'll disengage. They'll spend more time in the room or spend more time alone. Include them in those family activities. Just say, hey, I'm running to the store. I want to come with me, or I'm walking down to grandma and grandpa's house. Lunch, come with me. Engage with them, include them in those little activities. Can you come set the table? Can you come help me with dinner? That kind of thing. Another one of those signs that that they might be dealing with some stress and some worry is making some bad choices, making choices that like I always say, it's like, that's not really like him. That's not something that he would normally do. And anytime something stands out as outside the norm, okay, I always ask, okay, so why is that happening? What is the reason? What is motivating that behavior? So when they're making bad choices, predictable, natural and logical consequences. Okay, the N/L in there, that means natural and logical. Predictable, natural, and logical consequences. So if I am up in the middle of the night and I notice that there's a light on in my son's room, and I go there and he's playing his video games past time when he's supposed to be playing, a logical consequence that that you have to have that off by 10 o'clock. You didn't. So tonight, it's coming out of your room. Okay? That's a very logical consequence. I'm not going to over consequence. I'm not taking it away for a month or anything like that. And make that predictable. Let them know in advance. Hey, if it doesn't go off in time, you lose it for the next day. Simple, right? Somebody who doesn't get their chores done in a day. Well, no, TV doesn't go on, or no, you can't go out and play with your friends until you get the lawn mowed. Something that is very, very logical, very natural. Debrief, teach. So if they're making bad choices, once everything's calmed down, go back to them and say, hey, so what was that about? What were you feeling? Or what could I have done something different? Or what would you do differently next time? Have those conversations, right? The best way for these kids to recognize what should happen next time is to teach them. Teach them those replacement behaviors. It's not enough to say, you know what, you're not allowed to go to your room, slam the door, and blast your music. That's not an appropriate response to your stress. Okay. What can they do instead? If we tell them, no, you're not allowed to do that, and don't replace it with anything, we're going to leave that void, and they're just going to rely on the same behaviors that they've always relied on. Finally, that loving, supportive messaging. Yeah, today was a bad day, but you know what? I love you. I'm here for you. I know we're all going through some stress right now. And there's good days and there's not as, there's bad days, and that's okay. That's perfectly normal. Let's just learn from it. Let's make sure that tomorrow is a better day. Loving, supportive, I'm here for you messages. And that's going to be that's going to be something that we should be doing anytime there's stress, anytime there's worry, anytime anytime we have those down days, whether it's a blip and, whether it's not something that's happening too often, it's not something we're worried about, that's okay. You know what? No kid was ever loved too much, right? Let's give those messages of compassion and love, and it doesn't even have to be a bad day, right? Hey, you're doing really good. I really notice how great you're doing, and I notice, and I like it. I'm so proud of you. Those are really important messages. All right, so that has been part 2. If you have any, if there's anything in here that stood out to you, if you have any more questions, or if this has made you kind of think about your child and what some of their struggles, or your approach, and you'd like more information, please don't hesitate to contact the wonderful people at KL, Kw'umut Laylam, the wellness team. There's their phone number there with the extension. Once again, my name is Dean Heald. It's been my honor to present part 2 of this 10-part webinar series. Thank you very much.